As guitarists, we are all addicted to the gear acquiring syndrome. And why is that? It's because we are looking for the one thing, the guitar tone. And in order to achieve the guitar tone, we are always on the hunt for maybe the next pedal that will give us that tone. Maybe the next plug-in that will give us the tone. Maybe a new pickup. Maybe a new guitar even. Maybe a new amp. Anything goes, you name it. It is important, however, to look at the frequencies that make or break a guitar tone in the first place. And with that said, welcome to my channel. You're watching String Machine, and I am Tyrone Sasha Henry, and we discuss frequencies right after the intro. Alright, so here we are back with our current setup. So what you can see here is, okay, I have it in graphic EQ. I like graphic EQs better for guitar sound designing, so to speak. So guitar sound sculpting. And an analyzer so that you can see what effect the different frequency bands have for the guitar tone I've dialed in. Pretty standard high gain sound. If you want to know what the high gain sound is, or how I created this high gain sound, and what gear I use, leave a comment down in the comment section below, and then we can go over that in a separate video. But today I really want to talk about frequency responses in the first place. Now let's have a look. So this is the frequency response of a relatively normal high gain sound, a bit more on the mid-rangey side of things, but as you can see, it's rather even in the mid-range. It's around about 125. It's a bit more pronounced. That's like from the damping. If you just play it standard, then it wouldn't be as much. And the frequency range, as you can see, goes basically roughly from like 60 Hertz up to 6 kilohertz, right? So don't count for those little speckles down at 16 or 31. They are so low, you hardly ever hear them. So when you go like roughly around about here, that's 62, and here, that range here at the minus 25 line, that's roughly about like in the 6K section, and this is somehow where your guitar sounds actually live. And that's actually also a good one to remember when you're buying equalizer pedal or something like that. If you have an equalizer pedal that goes up to 16K or something, it doesn't do anything for your guitar sound, okay? Because there is nothing there at 16K that can affect the sound, basically, okay? So let's start with the 31 Hertz. You could actually take this out. You will notice, see that? So the bottom end looks a little bit cleaner now, okay? And that does make sense. Yeah, because you don't need that, okay? It just clutters the bottom end where it then interferes with the bass or the bass drum or something. So you could literally take this out, but okay, for the sake of it, you just simply leave it in, but we don't do anything with it, okay? So those bands I usually do not use at all. So the 60, I don't use the 60 as much either. I usually use 80. So here in this range, in this EQ, we don't have 80, so I would use the 60 in that case. Maybe a quick word for the equalizer. This equalizer, or most of the equalizers, are set up in like octaves, okay? So the lowest octave is 31, then double the frequency is always an octave, double the frequency is like 63-ish, all right? Then double that is like in the 125, it's actually 126, but they round it off a little bit. 125, next octave 250, next octave, double the frequency 500, 1K, 2K, 4K. So that's how most of the, especially the graphic EQs are designed. So let's have a look at the 60 hertz range. That's basically your low end, okay? So if you increase that, okay? So you get more low-end punch, obviously, but the low-end punch then also is like overbearing, and it makes things getting a little bit muddy. So keep that in mind. If you would have then to increase the highs as well to balance for that, and then you get more and more an imbalanced sound that is not easy to fit in a mix. Okay, so don't overdo it here. Usually, my advice would be 2 dBs, 3 dBs at max. You don't need to do much more than that on any of those frequency bands, okay? Anyway, on the other side, what happens if we decrease the volume? So we take it out. Yeah, so obviously the sound gets more thin and anemic. So you need that, okay? But usually, as I said, I personally don't touch the 60 hertz. I usually grab the 80 hertz, okay? So around the 80 hertz, there's more meat in the signal, and then you can either increase or decrease it a little bit and keep the 60, but which is actually something that you want to keep, and keep that one untouched, okay? So let's go next. 125. I personally have the 100 more. That's what I'm aiming at, the 100 roundish, about that. 125 is okay as well. That's a frequency that you definitely need to have, 100 to 125 in that range, okay? So that's your, let's say, your low mid-range, okay? Where your guitar sound actually lives when it comes to the low mid-range. So if you find that your guitar sound is lacking punch, grab the 100 to 120, 125 range rather than the 60, which is your very low end. Leave that alone. If you're looking for punch, go into the 100 range, okay, and look for punch there. Also, it's very warm. You notice this immediately. It makes the sound very warm. What happens if we take it out? Yeah, it gives you that tin can sound, right? So it's really the guitar sound is actually collapsing, basically. So right, okay. So you want to have the 100 range, okay? Then another important frequency is the 200 range. In this EQ here, it's like 250. Yeah, interesting frequency to have. It gives meat to the bone. Yeah, it's sort of an alternative frequency to the 100 as well. So you gotta have it, but it gives you more. It's less on the punchy side. It's more on the side of giving you a bit of a more defined lower mid-range. Yeah, put it that way. If you want to open that one up a little bit and do not want to have it sounding too scooped or too compressed, you could maybe add a little bit on the 250. But for the most part, just leave it like it is. Leave it at 0, and it's usually fine. So let's quickly have a look what it does. What happens if you take it out. Telephone effect, even more so than with a 100, okay? But it's still, for me, it's one of those frequencies that I usually, for the most part, leave untouched. Next one, this is a very important frequency. I usually gravitate towards the 400 rather than the 500, but it is that range. And if you look at that in the analyzer, it's pretty much the mid of the whole frequency band. It sits right here. Yeah, in that range, almost in the middle, not exactly in the middle, but pretty much. So, and this is a very interesting frequency band, because if you increase the band, you get this pokey sound. This is rather unpleasant, actually. It's proper mid-rangey, and it's really like this nasally kind of mid-rangey sound. Yeah? What happens when you reduce it, however, you sort of get a little more punch. And clarity. Sort of the rhythm sound when you take the mid potty in your amp, when you decrease that one. When you take the mids out in the amp, that's pretty much that sound. So if you reduce, for example, the 400 to 500 and increase the 100 to 125, you get a very punchy rhythm sound. So, very good frequency to have. Next one, that is one of the key frequencies for guitar. That's the 1 kilohertz. And it's funny that it's right here. This is very, very important to have, because this is where your guitar sits in the mix, okay? So I really, when I'm mixing, make sure that the 1 kilohertz is relatively free for the guitar. All right? So let's see what happens when you increase that. It's where your guitar lives. See, now that we've increased it and now we're going back to 0, the guitar sound was perfectly fine beforehand, and now it actually sounds a little bit like scooped, right? Even though it is not scooped. And looking at the frequency curve, still a little bit bottom heavy, but definitely not not scooped, but here this is where the guitar is, the 1K, so where you get your guitar in the mix, right? So this is a very important frequency. I'd rather increase that frequency if I feel that my guitar is not sitting in the mix well, or I can't hear the guitar throughout the mix. The first one to grab would be the 1K and to increase that one a little bit. All right, good. So next one, 2K. 2K for me is an alternative frequency to the 1K. If I can achieve what I want to do with increasing or decreasing the 1K, then I would leave the 2K alone. But let's still see what we can do, what it does for us. So that's your upper mid-range in the guitar world, right? So it opens up the sound, yeah, makes it sound a little bit fresher. It's something good to have every now and again. It counters the punch a little bit. So if you have too much 2K, too much freshness, then it overshadows the low mid-range and the low-end punch. So I would be rather on the homeopathic side of things. I just use it with caution. What happens if we take it out? Sound gets dull, but it will happen with all of these higher frequencies, more and more. All right? 4K. For me, 4K is where your treble sits, okay? That's your high frequency, the nicer one. You probably noticed with the 2K, it can already sound a little bit harsh. There's all of a sudden a certain going on. So let's have a look with the 4K. Right, so that's basically your treble potty on the amplifier. Okay, that sits around the 4K. That does exactly the same thing. So next frequency is the 8K. If I don't have 6K available, I grab the 8K, and that's the presence basically. Okay, and this is my go-to frequency if I do not want the guitar sound to sound too harsh, but I want to give it a bit more fresh and brightness. Okay, so you have two options. You could either grab for the 4K. The 4K is more drastic, yeah, and can sound a little bit brittle if you overdo it. With the 8K, you're already getting into a range of highs that not necessarily are perceived as brittle, right? So I'd rather grab those ones, the 6 and 8K, if I have an issue with my treble, and tend to leave the 4K alone. And if I want to open up the sound a little bit, then I'd rather grab the 2K, as I mentioned already. Okay, those were the main bands that make or break a guitar sound. Good. That wraps it up for today. I hope you found this helpful. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. That definitely helps this channel. And I'll see you next time. And I'm saying so long.